What if the next penny you pull from an old coffee can, forgotten piggy bank, or inherited coin jar could be worth more than a luxury mansion? It sounds unbelievable, but for a handful of collectors, one ordinary-looking Lincoln cent has become an extraordinary treasure. Today we're uncovering the story behind the 1939 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that many people have handled without realizing its hidden potential. Before you dismiss the pennies sitting in your drawer, stay with me, because one small detail could change everything. In 1939, the United States Mint in Philadelphia struck millions of Lincoln cents without placing a mint mark beneath the date. At first glance, they appear completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait sits proudly on the front, while two wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent on the reverse. Millions entered circulation, buying candy, newspapers, and cups of coffee during an uncertain time in American history. Most became worn, scratched, and eventually forgotten. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. While the average circulated 1939 penny is worth only a modest premium today, a tiny number survived in astonishing condition. These remarkable survivors escaped decades of wear and retained nearly flawless surfaces, brilliant original color, and razor-sharp details. Elite collectors compete fiercely whenever one appears, sending prices into astonishing territory. Imagine spending a penny that could someday be worth more than your retirement account. Sounds painful, doesn't it? That's exactly why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its face value. Now, you've probably heard claims that a 1939 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is worth $739,000. Here's the important truth. Values at that level are not typical for ordinary examples. Extraordinary prices are reserved for coins with exceptional preservation, rare characteristics, or unique collector demand, often certified by professional grading services. The difference between a common penny and an elite collectible can be almost invisible to an untrained eye. So, what should you actually look for? Start with the color. Original bright red copper commands the strongest premiums. Next, inspect Lincoln's hair, cheek, and jawline for crisp detail. Turn the coin over and examine the wheat stalks. Sharp lines and minimal wear are encouraging signs. Finally, use magnification to search for unusual die varieties, doubling or striking anomalies that could dramatically increase collector interest. Here's something many people overlook. Cleaning a coin almost always reduces its value. That shiny appearance might seem attractive, but experienced buyers usually prefer untouched originality. Ironically, doing nothing is often the smartest move. Think about that for a second. Could the coin you've ignored for years actually deserve a closer inspection? Stories continue to surface of families discovering valuable coins tucked inside old albums, forgotten toolboxes, and inherited collections. Most searches end with ordinary pennies, but every remarkable discovery begins the same way. Someone decided to look instead of assuming. So before you spend another wheat penny or toss an old jar of cents into a coin counting machine, slow down. Examine each coin carefully. The 1939 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that history, rarity, patience, and knowledge can transform something almost everyone overlooks into something truly extraordinary. Sometimes real wealth isn't hidden in a vault. Sometimes it's been hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to recognize its true value.
What if the next coin worth a fortune is already sitting in your pocket, hidden inside an old coffee can, or forgotten in a dusty drawer? Before you dismiss another ordinary-looking penny, take a closer look. Because one particular 1962 Lincoln cent has captured the attention of collectors across America, and under the right circumstances, an exceptional example has reached a value approaching an astonishing $762,000. That number sounds unbelievable, but the story behind it is even more fascinating. And before this journey is over, you'll know exactly why some people unknowingly spend coins that could have changed their financial future forever. The 1962 D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint during a time when billions of pennies were entering circulation every year. Most were used for everyday purchases and eventually disappeared into jars, piggy banks, and forgotten collections. To almost everyone, these coins looked identical. But experienced collectors know something the average person doesn't. Not every coin leaves the mint in the same condition, and not every coin survives the decades the same way. Here's where things become interesting. The highest values are not simply attached to age. They're attached to rarity in extraordinary condition. A nearly flawless 1962 D Lincoln cent with exceptional eye appeal, original mint luster, and virtually no signs of handling can become incredibly desirable. Add a rare striking characteristic or an unusual minting quality, and suddenly a 1-cent coin enters an entirely different world. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at the date on a penny? Exactly. Most people don't. They glance at the value, spend it, and move on. That's why valuable coins continue to hide in plain sight. Imagine opening an old family coin jar inherited from your grandparents. You expect a handful of loose change. Instead, you discover a beautifully preserved 1962 D Lincoln cent that has remained untouched for decades. Could it be worth hundreds of thousands? Maybe, maybe not. But you'll never know unless you check carefully. Of course, not every 1962 D penny is worth a fortune. The vast majority remain worth only a small premium over face value. That's why understanding quality is everything. Collectors carefully examine sharp details in Lincoln's portrait, the wheat-free memorial reverse, the brightness of the original copper color, and whether the surfaces remain free from significant damage or cleaning. Professional authentication and grading can make the difference between an ordinary collectible and a headline-making auction result. And here's the part many people overlook. Cleaning an old coin, even with good intentions, can dramatically reduce its collector value. That shiny penny may actually become less desirable the moment it's polished. Sometimes doing absolutely nothing is the smartest decision you can make. The next time you receive change at the grocery store or sort through an old coin collection, resist the temptation to rush. Slow down. Read the date. Look for the small D mint mark beneath the year. Examine the surfaces under good lighting. One careful moment could reveal something extraordinary. History has a funny way of rewarding those who pay attention while everyone else looks away. Somewhere in America, another remarkable 1962 D Lincoln cent may still be waiting to be discovered. The only question is whether it will end up in someone else's collection, or whether you'll recognize its hidden potential before it's gone forever. What if the next coin you almost tossed into a jar could be worth more than a luxury mansion? Before you dismiss that handful of old pennies sitting in a drawer, consider this. One small copper coin, a 1970 D Lincoln cent, has captured the attention of collectors because the rarest examples have reached astonishing values, with exceptional specimens and extraordinary varieties commanding prices that can climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The difference between an ordinary penny and an extraordinary one can be so small that most people never notice it. That is exactly why you need to keep listening. In 1970, the Denver Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies. Most are worth only a cent, and millions still circulate today. But hidden among those ordinary coins are examples that collectors eagerly pursue. A combination of remarkable condition, scarce die varieties, and strong collector demand has transformed a few of these humble cents into legendary discoveries. Imagine carrying something in your pocket that could change your financial future without ever realizing it. Now here's the question that stops collectors in their tracks. What if you've already spent one? It's a thought that makes every coin enthusiast cringe. Yet it happens more often than anyone likes to admit. That's why experienced collectors never rush through a pile of old change. Take a close look at the date and mint mark. The tiny D beneath the year tells you the coin was struck in Denver. While the mint mark alone doesn't create enormous value, other details certainly can. Sharp design features, original reddish color, and an almost flawless surface can dramatically increase a coin's desirability. Some sought-after die varieties also exist for 1970 cents, making careful examination essential. Here's something surprising. 2 pennies can look nearly identical at first glance, yet one might buy lunch while the other could help pay for a new home. That's not magic. It's the fascinating reality of the rare coin market. Of course, don't assume every online claim is accurate. Stories of a single 1970 penny being worth $770,000 usually involve an exceptionally rare combination of condition, grading, provenance, or a significant variety. Extraordinary prices are reserved for extraordinary coins, not average circulated examples. That's why authentication by a respected grading service is so important before making any life-changing decisions. Think about how many families inherit jars of old coins without ever checking them carefully. Those collections often sit untouched for decades. Could one of those forgotten pennies be waiting for someone with the patience to notice what everyone else overlooked? The treasure hunt isn't about luck alone. It's about knowledge, curiosity, and refusing to underestimate the smallest things. Every remarkable discovery begins with someone asking one simple question: what if this one is different? So before you cash in that old coin collection or spend another Lincoln cent without a second thought, slow down. Inspect each coin carefully under good lighting. Compare the details. Look for exceptional preservation and unusual characteristics. Because sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest story, and the next unforgettable discovery could already be sitting quietly in your own home, waiting for the moment you finally decide to look.
Have you ever tossed a 1979 Lincoln penny into a jar without giving it a second thought? What if that ordinary-looking coin had the power to change someone's financial future? It sounds unbelievable, but some collectors have paid astonishing prices for the right Lincoln cents, and one exceptional example has been associated with values reaching an incredible $779,000. Before you rush to spend every penny in your pocket, there's something you need to know. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one can come down to details most people never notice. The 1979 Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint during a year when hundreds of millions of cents entered circulation. At first glance, every coin appears almost identical. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait sits proudly on the front, while the Lincoln Memorial stands on the reverse. Nothing seems unusual. That's exactly why valuable coins often hide in plain sight. They blend into pocket change, coffee cans, dresser drawers, and forgotten family collections waiting for someone curious enough to take a closer look. Now here's where the story becomes fascinating. Not every 1979 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a cent or a little more. So why would one command an extraordinary price? The answer lies in condition, rarity, and collector demand. Coins that somehow escaped circulation with nearly flawless surfaces are incredibly difficult to find decades later. Every tiny scratch, fingerprint, or nick lowers a coin's desirability. The finest known examples become trophies, and wealthy collectors compete fiercely whenever one appears. Think about that for a second. 2 pennies struck on the same day could have completely different futures. One buys nothing, the other becomes the centerpiece of an elite collection. Strange, isn't it? It's almost like identical twins, where one becomes a movie star and the other stays completely anonymous. Before you start celebrating, there's another twist. Some sellers believe every shiny penny is worth thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, that's one of the biggest mistakes in coin collecting. Serious buyers look for authenticated coins graded by respected third-party services. Professional grading confirms authenticity and carefully evaluates preservation. Without that verification, extraordinary claims rarely translate into extraordinary offers. But don't stop searching yet. Many valuable discoveries begin with someone willing to inspect coins that everyone else ignores. Look closely at the mint mark beneath the date. Examine the surfaces under bright lighting. Search for exceptional luster, sharp details, and signs that the coin has been carefully preserved. Even if your penny isn't worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, finding a premium example can still be exciting and financially rewarding. Imagine opening an old family coin jar this weekend. Most people would see loose change. You might see opportunity. That simple shift in perspective separates casual spenders from dedicated collectors. Every remarkable collection started with a single coin and a single decision to pay attention. The next time a 1979 D. Lincoln penny lands in your hand, don't let impatience make the decision for you. Pause. Inspect it carefully. Learn what makes one example ordinary and another truly exceptional. Because fortunes in coin collecting are rarely created by luck alone. They're created by knowledge, patience, and the willingness to look where everyone else stops looking. Your next remarkable discovery could already be waiting in your pocket, quietly hiding in plain sight.
Have you ever tossed a 1988 Lincoln penny into a jar without giving it a second thought? What if that ordinary-looking coin was hiding a detail that collectors would pay a fortune to own? Before you check your pocket change, there's something you need to know, because one tiny difference can mean the gap between 1 cent and a life-changing discovery. But here's the twist that surprises almost everyone. Not every 1988 Lincoln penny is valuable, and the internet is filled with exaggerated claims that cause people to overlook the coins that actually matter. The 1988 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, where millions were produced for everyday circulation. Most are worth only face value unless they are in exceptional condition or display a significant mint error. That's why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its date alone. They examine every detail, every letter, every surface, because history has shown that the smallest mistake at the mint can create extraordinary value. Now imagine opening an old coffee can filled with pennies from decades ago. It sounds ordinary, doesn't it? Yet stories like that have launched incredible discoveries. A single rare error coin can transform an overlooked collection into something truly exciting. That's why collectors spend hours searching through pocket change while everyone else walks right past hidden opportunities. So where does the talk of astonishing prices come from? High auction results almost always involve extremely rare circumstances. It may be a dramatic mint error, a unique variety, or a coin preserved in nearly perfect condition and professionally graded. Those exceptional examples can command remarkable prices because collectors compete fiercely for the finest known pieces. But beware of headlines claiming that every 1988 no-mint mark penny is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Extraordinary prices require extraordinary coins. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you actually looked at the date on a penny before spending it? Funny how we'll inspect a restaurant bill down to the last penny but never inspect the penny itself. If you own a 1988 Philadelphia penny, start by examining the lettering, the date, Lincoln's portrait, and the reverse design under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, striking errors, off-center designs, or other characteristics that separate your coin from the millions of ordinary examples. Never clean the coin even if it looks dull. Cleaning can dramatically reduce collector value in seconds. As your search continues, remember that patience often beats luck. The greatest collectors didn't become successful overnight. They learned what to look for, studied authentic examples, and refused to let excitement replace careful research. Every coin tells a story, but only careful observation reveals whether it's a common chapter or a legendary one. The next penny you find may not make you wealthy. Then again, history has proven that remarkable discoveries often begin with coins everyone else ignored. So before another handful of change disappears into a cash register or a coin-counting machine, take a closer look. Your 1988 Lincoln penny may simply be 1 cent, or it could be the beginning of a story you'll never forget. And sometimes, the greatest treasure isn't the coin itself, but knowing exactly what you're holding before someone else does. Have you ever dropped a handful of pennies into a jar without giving them a second glance? What if one of those ordinary-looking coins could completely change your financial future? Believe it or not, some Lincoln pennies have stunned collectors with incredible values, and one remarkable 1991 Lincoln penny has been linked to values reaching as high as $791,000 under extraordinary circumstances. Before you spend another penny, stay with me, because the tiny details we're about to uncover could make the difference between pocket change and a life-changing discovery. At first glance, the 1991 Lincoln cent without a mint mark appears completely ordinary. Millions were produced in Philadelphia, and because Philadelphia cents traditionally carried no mint mark during that period, most people never think twice about them. They pass through cash registers, hide in old coffee cans, and collect dust in forgotten piggy banks across America. That familiarity is exactly what makes searching so exciting. Every collector knows that sometimes the biggest surprises are hiding in the most common places. Now here's the twist. A regular circulated 1991 penny is usually worth only its face value. So why would anyone mention a value approaching $791,000? The answer isn't the date alone. It's the rare combination of exceptional preservation, unusual minting characteristics, and intense competition among collectors for truly extraordinary examples. The highest prices are associated with extremely rare coins that stand apart from ordinary circulation pieces, not with every 1991 penny you find in your pocket. So before you start planning a luxury vacation, ask yourself one question. Is your coin actually special? That's where the real treasure hunt begins. Look carefully at Lincoln's portrait. Study the lettering around the rim. Examine the date and every design detail under bright light. Does the coin display an unusual error? Is the strike unusually sharp? Has it somehow survived for decades without wear? These characteristics can dramatically influence collector interest. Even small differences can separate a common coin from one that attracts serious attention. Here's something that catches many people by surprise. Cleaning a coin almost always reduces its collector value. It sounds backward, doesn't it? You wash your car to increase its value, but cleaning a rare coin can actually hurt it. Original surfaces are often more desirable than shiny ones created by polishing. If you believe you've found something unusual, resist the temptation to make it sparkle. Imagine opening an old family coin collection that has been sitting untouched for 30 years. Inside is a crisp 1991 Lincoln cent that no one noticed before. Could it be ordinary? Absolutely. Could it deserve a closer examination? Without question. That's why experienced collectors inspect every coin individually instead of making assumptions. The greatest opportunities often belong to the people willing to slow down while everyone else rushes past. Millions overlook pennies because they're worth only 1 cent. Collectors know better. They understand that history, rarity, condition, and demand can transform an everyday object into something remarkable. So tonight, before another handful of change disappears into a drawer or gets spent on a cup of coffee, take a closer look. That forgotten 1991 Lincoln penny may simply be another ordinary cent, or it could be the beginning of a story you'll never forget. Sometimes extraordinary discoveries don't announce themselves. They quietly wait for the one person curious enough to notice.